notes started. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the governance working group meeting of contributor strategy CNCF tag. This is an official meeting of the CNCF, and as such, we are under the CNCF Code of Conduct. So please be respectful to your fellow volunteers and staff. With that, please make sure that you actually put your name into the meeting notes if you're attending. And if you have stuff for the agenda, please add it on. So that we can get going. And with that, we can get started with project advice.
Awesome. Yeah. So I believe I met Dawn and Josh at the last tag meeting, and I think this was the right place for us to actually go and ask our questions. I don't think we have anything specific, but just in general, just as a recap. So Pixie, right now, we contributed Pixie as a sandbox project last year. And as a part of that, we started with a BDFL model. And that was just because that was like the easiest thing to transition to at the time and make sure, we could do all these things safely. And I think we're at the point where we're moving Pixie towards becoming an incubating project. And obviously that kind of model doesn't really stand very well anymore. And so we just kind of wanted to see guidance towards what we can do to move towards that model, what kind of model really works well in CNCF, so we can just start working towards that. I think one of the things that we are going to do in the short term is that we have a governance board right now with people from different companies, and we hadn't done a very good job of actually doing monthly meetings and talking with the others in our governance board. So that's something we're going to resume in the meantime, but we want to also see like what we should start doing in the future to actually move towards the right model. And I think, so Zane, who's the BDFL of Pixie, he said he was going to make it, but he might be running late from a previous meeting, so he might hop on later at some point, but we can get started without him.
Number one, anytime you're preparing governance for a project, if you already have some kind of a system, the number one thing is to simply document the system that you have, right? Mm-hmm. To write up what you're already doing. Even if it's something that you need to change, because then you know what you're changing it from. Mm-hmm. For the concern that the CNCF has with BDFLs is, what happens when that person leaves the project, right? And so for that reason, they want you to have some kind of a structure, even because there's a couple of projects that have a structure where they have a singular project lead. They've just added a process by which that person can be replaced.
I see. Okay.
Do you have pointers for such projects or what that process might look like, so we can also use that as guidance as we figure out what to do?
Yeah. I'm not going to recommend open. Which one? It was either Open Metrics. I think it was Open Metrics that had that. Okay. Because their governance is otherwise weirdly complicated.
Got it.
Honestly, what's a lot simpler is that you take the structures that you have, and I don't have an example of this off the top of my head. I don't know if you, Dawn, but take the structures that you have, like, this this board of involved supporters, and or a maintainer council, mm-hmm. And simply add a thing where they elect the project lead. And that's assuming you think you still want a singular project lead, right?
Yeah.
Because you might decide, we're just going to have a maintainer council for the code people.
Right.
And yes, for as long as he's on the project, he's going to be, effectively the leader of that group, but he doesn't need titular authority for that. And if he leaves or become less involved, we would assume that it would become more of a group activity. because it's the other way to go.
So how does your BDFL feel about this whole situation right now?
Oh, I mean, I think.
I
Well,
mean, super supportive
speaking
or
for him.
concerned or?
No, I
I'm
think
just
he's very
curious what the,
supportive.
you don't need to speak for him, but what's the dynamic around these discussions?
No, I think he's in total agreement. I think that was just the model we decided on the time because we thought that was the easiest, but we definitely want to make sure that Pixie succeeds. And, if he were to ever leave the project, we do want to make sure that it keeps growing because I think we've really built out a great community around it. And it'd be a shame if, just because Zane is not there any longer, that things fall apart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he's fully supportive of the whole thing. And I think he thinks it's the right step to move away from the model.
Cool. And how does the governing board, like what decisions does the governing board get to make versus what your BDFL gets to make? Or is that not a decision-making body? I'd like to know more about the split of responsibilities between those two.
So we haven't done a great job of holding our governance meetings. So yeah, I'm not really sure that much has been done, but I mean, it is supposed to be used to decide like higher level project goals towards like what Pixie should focus on and things like that. I don't think for our BDFL, he was really treating it as like he will mandate exactly everything that needs to be worked on. So the governance board, when we created it, was intended to be, this is a way for us to kind of decide the future goals of the project and things like that. So it was actually, like a board that would be there to ensure that the project succeeds and we work on the right things and not just depend on one single person's opinion for everything.
I think the hope and idea was that it was like an advisory board and the BDFL would be like the tiebreaker if you ever needed one kind of.
Yeah. So the people who are on this advisory board, governing board, whatever, are these technical contributors or are they representatives of sponsoring companies?
So that's kind of a mix. So we have are two people who are from the main, like the original Pixie team, which is me and Zane. And then we have two people from like end users. So these are like larger companies who are using Pixie. And then what would you call the last group?
Just like sort of community members. So like folks who might be who are technical contributors to other projects who could like sort of suggest how we can grow or how we can work with their products and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool, and it looks like Zane has joined us. Hello, Zane. We were just talking about you.
Hey, nice to meet you all. Sorry, I'm en route to the office, so I had to take the call on my phone.
No worries.
Yeah, so we were saying for context, we were just giving them some information and just about how our current governance model works. They had some very good suggestions about just like, having a project lead, but then having also a backup plan for what happens if that person decides to leave the project. Like, how does the next person get elected, basically?
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think one of the decisions you probably need to make now is, do you want to continue with sort of one person leading the project and kind of the model that you have now but with a provision for replacing the person who's no longer a BDFL because there's a way to replace them. Or does that not make sense anymore for the project and you want to move to something else, in which case there are other options around like, maintainer councils and, groups of maintainers that you could move to. I mean, the easiest, as Josh mentioned earlier, is to kind of document what you have and make some slight changes to it so that it's not a big change. But I think when you're making these changes is a good time to reassess whether what you have right now is working really well, in which case let's keep it and modify it, or are there some challenges with it, in which case maybe another option might be better.
Yeah, so I guess some context around that, we were trying to go with the one maintainer, like one, high level maintainer model until we become a larger project and then kind of switch to a more elected system. And in the current scheme, it actually is me and Michelle. So it's not like a pure BDFL. So there's actually a backup person set up. I don't know if Michelle said that or not.
I did not say that, but
So I think that's kind of getting to like what you're suggesting. It's like very similar to today, but like document the Michelle. Like I think we actually do have it documented, but make it a little bit more clear in what the process is to replace the person in charge, I guess.
Yeah. How many major contributors does Pixie have right now, roughly?
I think in terms of major, we're probably looking at like around 20, like people who contribute like substantial amounts of code.
Yeah. And how many of those are how many do you have that are not working for the same company?
There are a handful of people not working at New Relic that are pretty significant contributors.
Yeah.
But you know, most of like the full-time contributors work at New Relic. And I think we are working right now pretty actively to get a few more full-time contributors from other companies. But right now, the vast majority are from New Relic.
Yeah. Because one of the other reasons to look at governance structure is to provide an avenue to basically cultivate new maintainers.
Yep.
You know, and if somebody rises to the level of code responsibility that they're a maintainer, they generally want to have some governance authority as well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if they happen to not work for New Relic.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, this happened before you called in, Zane. I don't want to use this as a pattern, but I think it was Open Metrics that actually has a singular project lead with an election procedure, and you don't want to copy them exactly because there's a lot of weird things about their governance. But the essential idea was that they have basically what amounts to a maintainer council, you know, the people who have maintainer status, and that group elects the project lead on an annual basis. So if it really works for your approval workflow for there to be a single person with final responsibility, then you could consider using that kind of a structure. But you also have this governance board too, which, you know, so whether that would be separate from a maintainer group or you know, the same body where you have sort of a mix of sponsor representatives and maintainers is, you know, going to be kind of up to you based on the people who you know who are involved in the project.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that's important, and I think this kind of ties back into what Josh was saying, but you know, so I work at VMware, and when we're looking at contributing to projects, we want to see that there is some path to leadership if our contributors start to become more and more active and we start relying on a project. So I think, you know, finding a structure which gives you a clear path to get more maintainers, to get more people into leadership positions. Now, we don't need to overcomplicate things. Like getting more people into maintainer positions is probably fine given the size of the project and the stage that it's in now, but it's something to think about as you work on the governance as well.
Yeah, I think those are all really good thoughts, and yeah, I think we definitely need to rethink some of this stuff. We're actually just about to get an external maintainer, like someone who's not like everyone that's a maintainer right now works at New Relic, and we're about to add somebody that's not, right? So we're going to start seeing some of these issues that you're talking about, but we're just hitting that stage right now.
Okay. Well, do you have any other questions for the committee?
I think one thing that would be really helpful for us is after we finish drafting all this, we can run it by you and get your thoughts and suggestions. Like it'd be great. Like we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just go ahead. I mean, you can tag us on GitHub, but it's definitely a good idea to also post something in the Slack channel, because GitHub notifications.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, this is great. Thank you all so much for bringing this into the meeting. It's always, I don't know, I always enjoy having these discussions and seeing what people are doing with their governance and what works and what doesn't, and how we can help.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks to you
for
guys.
taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Look if anybody's added anything to the agenda, because we have,
I don't see anything.
yeah, we have some of our mentorship crew here. Jay, Ryan, did you need to discuss anything?
Nothing yet. We've got our working group meeting again next week. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we'll cover a lot of key bases of that and raise anything else outstanding at the next strategy meeting. So okay for now.
Okay.
Well, Alexander's just joined us as well.
But bad internet. Nothing from my
I think Rand's breaking up a bit.
Yeah, but he was basically saying nothing from his end.
Okay.
So
Cool.
The okay. Yep. If nobody has anything else, quick, Dawn, you want to just do a quick PR and issue review?
That'd be great.
Okay. The so a whole bunch of documentation stuff. Leadership selection doc should link to the templates, which is to do for somebody. We're doing ongoing work on the orientation documents for the templates. Tweet of the week.
I think we've been pushing the contributor survey pretty hard, and I think that's probably
Yeah,
a good thing
okay,
to
that's
continue
probably
to
it, yeah.
focus on. I don't
We
think we want to
may
distract.
have gotten over 100 respondings on that, so
Oh, great.
which would be nice.
Yeah.
The okay.
And the where are we? Sorry, on the orientation docs for the governance stuff that you were working on. I think you were working on the sub projects or federated.
Oh yeah, and I think I got into one remaining issue. Yeah, there's two remaining issues with it, and I just haven't gotten around to resolving those and pushing another commit,
Okay.
which I should do. So those actually get merged, particularly because for merging the other templates, this particular PR also includes the sort of the table contents page. So
Okay.
so if we end this meeting early, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, this is all content. The advisory document on how to run an open source election, I really need to get to. If we're dividing things up, it would be nice if someone else could take on the remaining two governance templates, and I would actually start on that because I just ran into one project that's using Electo, and we're in the middle of the election now, and I've just realized that one of the people who's actually running for office is also one of the election admins, which really shouldn't happen. But of course, we haven't given anybody advice or guides. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I rewrote a bunch of the Knative processes for running an election for that
Yeah.
project. That might be a good starting point for some of it anyways. And
Yeah, no,
I'll
it'd be
work
good.
on the other two templates. I've had that on my to-do list for flipping forever. But I was kind of waiting until you got your PR merged so that then I could
Yeah.
model everything and be really
Okay.
consistent.
Okay, well, I'll finish that today then.
And then
The-
that will give me
just-
no more excuse for not doing that.
Yeah. Because there's just two things that Carolyn called out, and I just need to fix those two things.
Awesome.
So, okay. Yeah, and of course we have other stuff. I should just close the end user and multi-org stuff because the TOC ended up taking that in their own direction, and it's not going to be our responsibility anymore. So, I'm going to close those.
Cool.
The and pull requests.
Yeah, the pull requests are all super old.
Well, except for so I've got my governance one, and then I don't know what's going on with draft syncing. Carolyn?
I want to get rid of drafts.
Okay. So go back to just flagging documents as draft in the header.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
it was a
this
nice
is
experiment. It
too
didn't
complicated
work.
for what we need. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a nice experiment. It didn't work.
yeah,
The,
exactly.
So
I'll remove the branch, just make sure there isn't anything that's in the wrong spot, you know, and
Okay.
if there is, then I'll submit a PR for that.
okay. Let me make sure I'm not syncing into drafts.
Okay.
Oh, so right now my PR is aimed at syncing into drafts.
Okay, I'll clean
So-
it up when your stuff's done. How's that sound?
Well, except that are we going to have problems in the current state? Are we going to have problems syncing from drafts to main?
Well, we currently don't have any syncing happening at all right now. I tried to
Okay.
get it fixed up, didn't get the
So
PR approved, and now it's just all kind of broken.
I think the answer is when I fix my PR
Uh-huh.
is for me to just sync directly to main.
Okay.
So I'll just create a new PR syncing directly to main and link it so that people have history. Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is documenting pre-existing things, so we need to notify the liaisons, but we don't need their approval.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. If that's everything, then that's everything, and I'll use the extra time to actually finish that up.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice night. Cheers.